Okay, we're on.
Okay, I'm doing the interviewing. Okay, why don't you both introduce yourselves? I think that would be a good way to start.
Okay, I'll go first. I'm Robert Perron. I'm the author of The Blue House Raid, which is coming out on October 1st. And I've been writing short stories and doing a few other things. I stay mostly in the New York area. And well, that's about it for me.
Okay, I'm Euigoo Kang, originally from Korea. I was born in Korea when the Korean War broke out, 1950, and I grew up and then went to school in South Korea, and then went to after the army duties. I went into IT industry, and then came to Australia in the early 80s, and grew my family here. So I have already interest in books and writings, but it was not until when I retired a few years ago I came across with Bob, and I actually happened to guide, help Bob with some interviews. So that's how I got into this one. So I'm actually translating Bob's book. Which is about, it's at the moment, it's getting being proofread. So it's about 60–70% through. So I should come up soon.
Well, just about 45 minutes ago, my neighbor knocked on my door and left this package right in front of my door, which is the book. And I got I just got the book like 45 minutes ago, and a nice photo of you and Bob in the book.
Mm-hmm.
So you're both really nice photo. The book looks gorgeous. So I was really excited.
Oh yeah, this is on the inside cover.
Yeah.
Right.
That is a great photo.
With one of the commandos. Yes.
I know. It's like it's a park, right? Or a where they have sculptures of the commandos.
Yeah, I was really surprised when we came across that. I still don't know who actually built that park. Do you know, Euigoo?
Yeah. That was about just less than 1 kilometer from the southern limit line in the DMZ.
Yeah, that was right up by the DMZ. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. So that's what that was. That's still the kind of that's what Bob used to call Indian country.
Yeah.
Referring to the second the army division there, so the insignia is an Indian head. So then I think that now the local people were allowed to run till the farms there. So the farmers, local farmers, are allowed to get in. So that's how we got into that area.
Yeah, I was very surprised that we were able to get that close to the DMZ, and then I was doubly surprised to find that little park there with the commandos coming under the fence.
Bob, can you give a little, just a little bit about the book, what the book is about?
The book centers on a raid of the same name, the Blue House raid. Although in Korea, I think it's called the January 21st incident more often. And this happened in January of 1968. 31 North Korean commandos, and these were probably about the best guys they had up there, infiltrated through the DMZ and got within a kilometer or two of the Blue House, which is the presidential palace in Seoul. And the mission was to kill Park Chung-hee, the president of South Korea at that time. And they got close. They were stopped. There was a lot of fighting. A lot of people on both sides were killed. And the Americans got involved only slightly. But as it turned out, that slight bit happened to be the unit I was with. So I had, this personal connection with the raid. And I wrote a fictional story that is based around it. And the story also gives you an idea of what it was like for the Americans and the Koreans over there at that time. Do you, Euigoo,
Euigoo, yeah, so.
or maybe you want to ask that question?
No, why don't you ask the question? It's fine.
I'm just wondering, do you remember this raid when it happened and afterwards?
Yes, I do remember very clearly, like yesterday, because that was a year when we are getting into senior years of high school. We are actually all geared up for the upcoming university entrance exams. So we are really busy. But that in January, that's between my junior, what we call the high school, second year high school to third year, so year from year 11 to year 12. So that was, so we were from middle of 1967, we were pretty immersed with all these exam preparations, all of that happened there. So we, everyone thought that, oh, Jesus, that's, the war is going to break out. And actually, when that happened, the Kim Shin-jo was on television. That's how we knew about. Kim Shin-jo was one of the commanders who were captured. And he was not much preparation by the CIA. He was paraded into right in front of a television camera. And he just said just the unfiltered word. The people asked why you're here, and I came here to cut off Park Chung-hee's head. Everyone went berserk after that word. So yeah, but then there was the military operations and the people killed, they're lying on the ground. They're all on the television, all on the newspapers. So and then after that, a lot of changes in Korean society. So that's how we remember.
Just yesterday, I was thinking about here in this country, there's a lot of historic amnesia where things can happen 5 years ago and people don't even remember it really. The culture just disappears it. What this event, is it part of the general consciousness of people living there now, and is a younger generation, or is it also in their head that this thing happened, and or is it forgotten, or is it active in people's minds in some way?
I think yeah, that's for me. Yes, the a bit older generation are probably up to 50s, and they remember because they lived through it. But the millennials, younger generation, they're probably all forgotten about it. They're actually learning by watching television documentaries and so on. So, however, the Blue House raid incident actually changed Korean society, politics, profound impact on that, because that's the same with the South and same with North Korea. And now I wouldn't go through the historic background, but after that, the President Park came to power about 8 years before through military coup, and he actually used this instance because the 31 commandos came within 500 meters of his compound. You know, just scary. So, and he actually used that as a control South Korean population to, I mean, it's a necessity, but the end result was his dictatorship, as his position as president is legitimized, as his, he had a total control. Same goes with North Korea.
Yeah, that's interesting.
But for slightly different reasons. So it's, and then another, culturally, the military culture was prevalent in South Korea, especially among men, because it was important because every Korean able man had to join, serve the army. But after this one, even after they finished their military the duties, you have to go still participate into as a reserve. So the 2.5 million reserve force was created. So that was profound change in Korean culture.
I think one of the real interesting things about the book coming out is that more people in Korea are going to know about the event than here in the United States.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting to. I'm really curious how people are going to respond to the book there. I'm here too, but it's. How was it translating the book, or what was the experience like?
It was fun, actually. I had to ask quite a lot of questions to Bob about Korea, the American slangs that he used, especially in the military setting, and then the subtle difference between northern area of America versus South. So it's something that I couldn't pick up without asking the author. So that was good. And the story itself is quite intriguing and really well structured. So it actually showed a different aspect of the relationship between the GIs and the local population, and then among themselves too.
Now, Bob, no, you told me the story how you met, but how did you meet again? Can you say that? Can you both tell me how you met and came to this collaboration, which is really quite terrific?
Well, I planned a trip to Korea in 2017, and one thing I wanted to do is I wanted to go up to the area north of Seoul, near the DMZ, where I had been, and maybe kind of walk over the ground again where I'd been and see if I could talk to a few people up there. So I got a guide, Roger Shepard, who has an outfit called Hike Korea. And I enlisted him as a guide. And we actually hiked in the south part of Korea for a while, for about a week. Then I went into Seoul, we visited there. And then when we went up to the area north of Seoul, Roger said, I have a friend who can go with us and he can translate for us and, help to guide. And actually, when I met Euigoo, he had gone up, I believe he had gone up the week before to actually to scope out the area and plan for the trip. And he just did an excellent job, setting me up with people to talk to there. Did you want to add anything on that, Euigoo?
Yeah, just I happen to be Roger and I have been working together for a while in translating Roger's essays of his adventures in North Korean mountains.
Wow.
And so that was he to fund his trips. He actually ran a few crowdfunding projects by running a series of stories. which actually kind of resonated with the local population. He actually, collected a few enough funds to continue his trips and publish his books. So I was involved in a few of those the projects, and also went to hiking with him a few times as well. So actually at that time, Roger asked me if I would like to come with them in Paju, which is north of Seoul that Bob referred to. So I happened to actually ask a few leads actually who might actually help me with. So I started with my the Army friends from my own university. So if they knew anyone in that area. So one of the guys actually was from that area. So he actually introduced me to a few of his old relatives we could talk to. But then again, I couldn't get anyone who can tell us about this one-to-one Blue House raid firsthand. So my wife and I went to just a cold turkey. I went to drop up there and drop into a restaurant, asked just an old lady if she knew anyone. So, and then I found a couple of people. That's the guy who showed you Bob, the Blue Lens Valley.
Oh, yes, yes.
That's the guy we had a coffee with later on. And then through another source, I actually happened to contact someone from the county office, and who was writing blog about Paju's history and so on. So I thought he would be a good start. So I contacted him, and he actually, he's the one who introduced me to Mr. Song, the old mayor. So he was something like a lot older than you. He was 83, wasn't he?
Yeah, so he must have been the mayor. He might have been the mayor while I was over there. Yeah.
No, he was ex-mayor. He was elected mayor a few times, and he actually kind of organized everything. He knew everyone,
Yeah,
and including those the would-getter, the Mr. Wu.
Oh, the Wu cousins, yeah.
Wu cousins, actually. So we, that's how we came about, actually. I was rather surprised myself. That was when I got the mayor. I had a lunch with him, and he said he could help me with that interviews. So that was pretty good.
Yeah, that was great. We had coffee, and then later the mayor took us out to lunch. But the main thing was he introduced us to this guy Wu, who had been captured by the guerrillas back in January of '68, and got out of it with his life.
Wow.
And so he was able to tell us that whole story. He walked us over the ground where it happened.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So that one of the Wu brothers, they actually the country was so indebted to their sending a lot when they in their encounter, and so they basically asking what you guys want. So the guy, the youngest Wu, who we interviewed, he became a policeman.
Oh.
He actually spent his professional life in the Paju area police. He actually rose up to rank of I think senior lieutenant or something. So when we met him, he was retired, and very happily retired as well.
So those were the brothers you wrote about.
Yes.
Was it based on them, or was it pretty close to his story?
Well, I mean, he saw the youngest who actually, I don't think they were brothers, they were cousins. Everybody calls them brothers, but, but the youngest one who talked to us, I mean, he gave us a very detailed story of what had happened. So for that piece of the book, I was going from the perspective of the commandos, but I used everything that he had told me, you know, to try to get some authenticity into the story.
Yeah, that was a really kind of compelling little section of the book. I mean, it was real interesting, and they were pretty much, you know, they I guess their lives were in the balance, but they were pretty shrewd. You know, those kids, in order to protect themselves.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, at the time, it was had to be a really scary situation for them.
Yeah. Really, it was really an interesting little part of the book, and I guess they sent out the alert. And it's also interesting because the commandos had a kind of humanity there, but there was a kind of humanity because they didn't want to kill these people, and then of course it backfired on them. And at the same time, they were kind of imprisoned by their own ideology, thinking that these were people that they couldn't reach because they were of the people, and it was interesting, the dynamics of that little section, I think.
I think there was it's quite interesting there. Yeah, the North Koreans thought that in the late 60s in the North Korea, there was a theory that the South Korean society is in the verge of uprising or explosion, a social explosion. So they just need a little trigger to light that fire. That was the theory, and that they actually genuinely believe that Korea, the workers in South Korea are really suffering, and so that was one of the theories that actually powered the North Korean commandos and so on. They actually genuinely believe in that one, and from Wu's perspective, even though they were out for picking dead woods, their actually family was not that poor. They actually owned a lot of land among themselves. And Mr. Wu said he had actually a nice Seiko watch that actually uncle brought from Japan. So actually, he didn't wear his watches because for fear of being scratched by the twigs in the mountain. So when they come across these guys in the mountain, they knew immediately these are not South Korean soldiers. They thought they were dead, right? So then again, after initial panic's over, they actually kind of try their best to save their skins. So they actually pretend to be really poor because they wore actually really shabby the field clothes at the time, and so it was dead in the winter, and they actually said you know, they are out there to cut wood so that they can sell it to the market and buy some food for their mother. So that they actually that kind of storyline. So in the end, they couldn't kill them because there are 4 of them, and so then even they killed them, then they couldn't bury them because the land was so frozen solid. So that's why, and then apparently they took their boats and they resulted in favor of letting them go. So they all even in the end that these boys actually sent an alarm. So but it took, unfortunately, it took quite a while. Actually, it was went through the chain of command, because they had to actually ensure that they were not telling the lie. So yeah, so that was, but they became their acts actually. It became a star of a legend in South Korea. So unbelievable, they came that's right under the nose of the president.
Wow. How long did it take to translate the book?
Beg your pardon?
How long did it take you to translate the book?
Since I didn't have any, it took me about 3.5 months for the initial draft.
Yeah.
And then I have a friend in the US actually proofreading for me. So he has to do it when he's at his spare time. So it takes
I know, we know what that is. We know what working in our spare time is.
Yeah. This guy works 6 days a week, so I can't. Yeah. So he works 12-hour shift.
So after the proofreading is done, and we're happy with the book, when Euigoo is happy with it, then it has to go to the publisher, and he has to set it, and then send it back for another proof.
Right.
Because once you set it, things can happen. And the publisher said this is the first foreign language book he's ever done.
All right.
But I don't know if he should have picked Korean for his first one, but it was actually the publisher's idea. He mentioned it to me.
So your publisher is publishing it, the Korean.
Yes.
Oh, terrific! Oh, that's great.
Yes, he mentioned it to me. I mentioned it to Euigoo, and Euigoo said, "Yeah, you do it." Mm-hmm. So we're off to the races.
I think it's pretty good to have maybe, well, I mean, it can work two different ways, but having some lag time between the two books kind of keeps it current over a longer period of time, I think. You can focus on the book in this English version, and then the Korean version will come out, and that will be a kind of a new infusion of energy, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think it's really terrific. I mean, do you have any idea, any kind of idea when the book in Korean will come out? The Korean version of the book will come out, or is it just really up in the air right now?
It's kind of up in the air. Do you think another month or two for proofing it, Euigoo?
Yeah.
It's nothing.
So but then I figure it'll probably be another couple of months before it gets typeset and proofed again. You know how these things go around.
Yeah. So how will that work in Korea? Euigoo, are you going to be in Korea when the book comes out, or are you going to go there, or is that just going to happen independent of both of you?
I haven't thought that far ahead, but probably the COVID-19 restriction will have to be lifted first for us to be able to.
All of us.
At the moment, the Australian government actually bans all unnecessary foreign travelers, so it's that's another start at the moment, but hopefully that it will be lifted. I don't know, early next year.
Because I was thinking, for the English version, there's going to be a book launch, here, but it's not in person. It's going to be a Zoom.
Right.
I mean, I'm wondering. Now I'm just thinking how this is going to work, and then maybe we'll have another one once the Korean version comes out.
Yes, it seems like we could do the same thing again.
We could do the same thing. It'll be
I haven't really, thought this through yet. But Euigoo, tell me, do you buy books through Amazon?
I do. Yeah, in Korean, for if you're aiming at the Korean domestic market, that probably it's a good idea to go through one of those major booksellers in Korea as well. So that's something that your publisher will have to think about through their global alliance, what it's called, global program.
Okay, we'll have to discuss it with him then, because
Yeah.
I know he sends the books up to a book depository, and then it gets into Amazon,
Right.
and it goes to Barnes and Nobles also.
Mm-hmm.
And actually distributing ebooks is not a problem, but the
Right.
physical books, I would think you'd probably want to print them in country wherever you are.
Right. Yeah. So also there is, yeah, sorry.
Do a lot of people from Korea or Koreans live in Australia? I think I saw something once, but I don't remember.
Yeah. A lot of Koreans living in Australia.
Yeah.
I think there, I don't know, they about
So it's not a big, it's not a real
community. Not very big community, but US is a big market.
Yeah.
So I think that selling those the Korean book in US
That's
to a community, it's a good way to start as well. So
that's a great idea. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the professor, English professor I know in Korea, he's actually Catholic. What's called a brother, and he actually came to Korea in the early 80s, and he actually translates Korean poetry. So he normally publishes in the UK or US. So he actually sells a lot of those in Korea, in the US to the Korean community, because some very famous the names in poetry, the parents thinks that they could be very beneficial to their children. So they actually buy I thought the other way around, but this one is in Korean. So I think that the focusing on the Korean community in US it's a good way.
That's a really nice idea.
Mm.
I've been looking at those beautiful windows over there to your side. Did you make them, or did you? Oh, look at them! Oh, they're gorgeous.
So azaleas, actually, it's springtime here, mate.
Oh, those are really, oh.
Can you see? It's a little bit too much.
No, we can see all of them. It's I can see now. Oh, I can see you looking outside too. Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah, it's spring in Australia.
Spring in Australia.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. That's really nice.
Yeah.
And what brought you to Australia?
Beg pardon?
Why did you move to Australia? What brought you there?
Why did I move to Australia? It's quite complex. It's just I wanted to have somewhere peaceful, nice area, nice place to live and raise my family. So in those in the 70s, as I said, I went to I did my military service, started my job, and the first day I started a new job as an IT programmer. My first job after military. There was an incident in the Panmunjom, which is a little village in the DMZ. There was an incident where the North Koreans actually killed ex-American soldiers pruning a poplar tree. Do you remember that incident?
Yeah, yeah, I remember reading that in the news. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was another big day that I remember in a bad memory. Just Jesus, then again. So during when I was in the army, there we were actually my engineer friends, the officers actually busy digging up the boring the DMZ area to look for the tunnels. Because what North Koreans did was they actually dug under the tunnels underneath the DMZ, so that they can actually project a lot of troops in the event of a war. So we were finding all of those. A lot of it. That means there's a lot of tension around the area. So then again, 79, South Korean President Park himself was killed by his CIA chief. He was assassinated. And then after that, everyone was hoping that finally democracy is coming to Korea before another nightmare of a military dictatorship. Actually, the military staged another coup, and for another 10 years. So that was the environment. I was really angry because when I part of the job from late 70s, I was working in Saudi Arabia, Kingdom of Saudi Arabia in the Middle East, and then that's when the Gwangju massacre was happened. Well, Gwangju massacre is actually there was the student uprising in South Korea against the new military coup, and that's when they were crushed by force. So brutally killed. They opened fire against peaceful demonstrators and so on. So all of those were too much for me. So one that actually my desire to work for a better professional future. Another one was that I just need to get out of that and then just leave those worries behind me. So I couldn't just. It was an environment that's so oppressive, crushing.
Yeah.
Psychologically, it could kill me. So that's why I got out.
Oh.
So we moved out, and I didn't got back to Korea until 13 years later. For visit. One that I couldn't afford. Two that I didn't want to go back too early. Yeah.
It really wasn't until about 1990 until Korea turned into what we now think of as, a democracy.
That's right. Yeah. 87. Yeah, 87. There was a major decision, and but then again, true democracy didn't come until 91. You're right.
Yeah. So South Korea had a pretty rough ride from about from the war in 1950 right up until 1987.
Yeah.
A lot of difficult times.
Yeah. So
Bob,
it actually affected a lot of people. Yeah.
Just one question. Bob, what kind of how close were you paying? What kind of attention were you paying to what's happening in Korea while you were living here? Did you feel a particular connection? Were you following it? It sounds like you were following things more than most people here would be following it. But did you feel a connection through all these years?
Well, when I was there, I wasn't into the political situation at all. I knew that Park Chung-hee was the president, but that's about all I knew. I didn't really know just what his policies were or what kind of person he was. But the people we're very close to the people. The troops were in the Paju region, and what struck me most was the poverty at that time. It was just very difficult living up there. All the roads were dirt. There was no indoor plumbing, hardly any electricity in any of the places. So that's what I remember most about Korea at the time, was just how difficult life was for the average person up there.
Did you what connection did you have here when you were living here? You know, until you started writing the book, were you reading about Korea? Were you what was it? Did you follow the politics at all, or the you know, big events there, or
Yeah, I did follow it more than I would for other countries, because having been there, I just anytime Korea came up in the news, I became interested and looked at what was going on. But, and I was the one thing that made me really happy in my trip 3 years ago when we went up to the Paju region was to see how things had changed, to see people with you know, with paved roads and automobiles and indoor plumbing, and everybody just seemed to be doing a whole lot better than when I was there. So that made me really happy.
do you think we should wind up, or is there anything more you guys want to say?
Yeah, we've got about an hour here. So on the, I just wanted to thank Euigoo for all his work in this book, because I mean, he's working for, like, he'll get something out of royalties, but it will probably not amount to a whole lot. But he has put in a tremendous amount of work. When we were talking about the translation before, the one thing that just amazed me as we went through is that it did have like a lot of slang in there. I mean, it was not only GI slang, but the way the GIs interacted with the Koreans. So there was this sort of middle slang that was sort of half Korean, half American, with some Japanese thrown in. I could not imagine, you know, translating that into Korean.
That was really fun, Bob, actually. So when Bob actually said that he was writing his book, and we during the interview, some interviews were pretty long, right? And the Roger was recording our interviews, and I was busy translating, and no one was taking a note. It just Bob just listened, but he remembered everything. That was yeah. So and that was good. And when I think about about 2 years ago, Bob sent us the draft of his novel, and with a synopsis, and I shared the synopsis with the people we interviewed with, translate all those things. So they're actually pretty keen to see the book. And I myself, the story was really close to me and close to my heart. So because I lived through it, and the impact of it later on. So, and you know, it was, but also the story was quite interesting, well written, and especially after the some editing work done, they moved, they restructured the sequence of the chapters a little bit, which actually made the story a lot more gelling, more tight, and more actually kind of a gripping in a sense. So so that's I enjoyed myself actually translating it, because it also was good for me to spend all those lockdown time. I started from I think from mid-Feb, yeah, from March, so that I couldn't go anywhere anyway. So
so it really turned out. Oh, Well, congratulations. I mean, I can't wait to see the Korean version also. I won't be able to understand it, but I definitely will look through it and really enjoy looking at it.
Yeah, yeah.
And then maybe we can all find some place where we can, the three of us can find a place where we can all meet together when all this horror
Yeah.
kind of lifts and you know, and just really celebrate both of you. I mean, this is a huge achievement on for both of you. It's really it's extremely exciting and really congratulations.
Yeah. Bob, before we go, maybe you might want to talk to your publisher about Korean book publishing date. Perhaps if you could aim for 21st January next year. I don't know whether it's too tight. So kind of that's when that happened as well. So it might have a symbolic connection
That's a
to
good
it.
idea, yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know whether that's all practical.
Yeah, it's a good date to aim for.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Great to see you all healthy. Bob, I love your hair.
Oh yeah, yeah. I don't think I've had a haircut since the pandemic started.
Yeah. And my friend cut my hair today, so I got my haircut today.
You had that,
Oh, yeah. I should have, but I just didn't get around to it.
Bob was looking more to me like me than I'm looking to me like to myself because my.